What's up, everybody, and welcome back to First Fruits of Zion Reacts. Today we're going to be looking at a video about Jewish Christians in Israel, which is great. If you like that video, head over to FFOZ.org, sign up for an account, and we'll curate a bunch of content for you and even give you a little something for free. So check that out. In the meantime, let's go ahead and watch this and see. I'm excited to see about this. I love Jewish Christians in Israel. So let's go.
Shalom Chaverim, and welcome back to the ancient city of Jerusalem. We're in Yerushalayim right now, and I'm really excited to introduce you guys to an amazing community that I've connected with, the Church of the Messiah. I'm gonna see how I can gain entrance into here. Hello. Thank you so much. Nice to meet you formally. Yeah. So this is Idan, my internet friend that we linked up through a mutual connection. And Idan is a Jew, but also a Christian, but also Israeli.
Yeah.
Oh, the trifecta.
No, I'm not.
I'm very confused, and I'd love to get an explanation as to who and what you are.
Allow me to confuse you a little bit even more.
Okay.
If Jesus was a Jew, and his disciples at first were all Jews, and the New Testament is written mostly by Jews, why are we confused about this connection of Jews that will believe in Jesus would be something that is odd?
Yeah, I guess
That is a great point. It's a point we make often here at First Fruits of Zion. Following the Jewish Messiah is a perfectly Jewish thing to do. If the Messiah comes, to follow him and become his disciple, it is maybe the most Jewish thing you can do. The way it became something that Jews didn't do sort of categorically because of a bunch of, I'd like to say historical accidents, although I believe that God is providential, so they weren't accidents per se, but there's just tragic developments through history.
I mean, I feel like the impression that I usually have of Israelis, like myself, or Israeli Jews, is that we're Jewish. That's our religion. Obviously, Jewish identity is changing over time, and people are making different connections with it on being an ethno-religious group or religion, but it's not.
That's a great point. A lot of, the people who have grown up in the modern world, which is everyone watching this video and myself as well, may not remember the time when all Jewish people were Jewish in just about every sense of the term that you could think of, right? They were religiously Jewish. They were part of what we could call an ethnicity or a nationality that was also called being Jewish. And when you're thinking of like medieval times, right? In medieval times, you were either in that category and you were 100% in that category, or you could be like a Christian, and like never the twain shall meet. Like if a Jewish person wanted to follow Jesus as the Messiah, he had to stop being Jewish. And in fact, like in every sense of the word, he left not just a Jewish religion behind, but Jewish identity in toto, right? And then what happened was there was this thing called the Haskalah, the Jewish Enlightenment. You have Moses Mendelssohn and many others saying, Mendelssohn, as far as I could tell, was observant, but he sort of paved the way for an engagement with Gentile culture, like a free engagement, a philosophical, religious engagement. And this engagement led to many, many Jewish people saying, well, I'm going to go ahead and still be Jewish, but I'm not going to do the Jewish religion anymore. At least not in a traditional way. Or this is when Reformed Judaism was born. It's like, okay, we're going to keep being Jewish, but we're not going to keep all those commandments anymore. Like that is what were we thinking, right? And then later you have the conservative movement, which is a backlash against that, saying, whoa, we need to keep some of it. Some of it's good. And then of course you still have traditional Jews. You have Orthodox Jews who continue to be Jewish religiously, like traditional in the traditional sense, and of course having the national, or we could say ethnic identity. Ethnic's not a great word, although there is an ethnic component to it. We get more into Jewish identity in other places. Check the links below. Check the links below the video and look through the other reacts. Look at the Minecraft react. I think I talk about this. But yeah, so being Jewish today can mean like a few different things. You'd be the religion of Judaism, or it could be you'd be like, I don't know, just someone who's Jewish because your parents were Jewish and because their parents were Jewish, right? But you're not maybe not religious at all, or you have some other religion. So that's what he's talking about, is whether it's an ethno-religious identity or just a religious identity. All of these changes on the time scale of human history are relatively recent. So we live in a strange world, if you hadn't noticed.
So often that I meet Israelis, especially, to be honest with you, especially of like Mizrahi descent, that are Christians. Actually, I think you might be the first one I've ever met.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's not something that I come across often. So I think also for my audience, I'm assuming it's probably a pretty rare sight. So now we've made it outside of this beautiful building, which is the church.
Yes, indeed, Christ Church that we just spoke about.
So this is the
That's,
actual
that's
Christ
quite a
Church.
building.
Yes, that's the church, the compound we see around us. It's just like, added buildings that were used in different periods of time for different purposes, including schools and hospitals and archaeological office. And
Okay, important question while we're standing outside of this beautiful building.
yeah.
Are there many Jewish Christians like you?
Well, numbers are somewhere around by people that counted. It wasn't me. So
you didn't do the survey
No, I
yourself?
didn't.
What about his
So I don't
disclaimer?
know, 30,000. I'm hearing numbers, perhaps even more.
Wow.
Yeah, which is
Wow.
surprisingly.
30,000.
Yes.
I
in
thought you were going to say
Israel.
30.
Yes. No.
Wow, 30,000.
Exactly.
That's a lot more than I expected.
I dig. 30,000. Yeah, I wonder if you see the sites like in Israel, right? I wonder like how Jewish, in the sense of like their religious standard, like keeping the identity of, I'm a Jewish person. First of all, huge improvement from medieval times. Huge improvement. Like, you have to be able to follow Jesus and still be a Jewish person. Here at First Fruits of Zion, we encourage Jewish people to reconnect or connect with their religious heritage, because Jesus was a religious Jew. He wasn't just like a Jew. He was a Jew also in every sense of the Jew. He lived before the Haskalah, right? So he's keeping the commandments of the Torah like in a traditional way. He argues about exactly what that entails in like the very fine detail with other observant Jews, but they're all observant, right? Ed Sanders talks about this in one of the books I have back there. All Jews in that time more or less thought they were keeping the commandments of the Torah, even if they disagreed as to what exactly that looked like. And there was a lot of variety. There's Jewish Christians, even if everything about their worship looks Christian, I'm still going to say we've come a long way since medieval times, where if you wanted to be a Jew following Jesus, you had to stop being Jewish completely, right? That being said, I wonder if there's like Jewish stuff happening in this church. Like, I'm excited to see. So let's keep watching.
Let's go in. Let's see what's up.
Whoa. That's beautiful. If you guys have like one of those ticks that you like satisfying architecture, oh my God, this archway is the most.
Yeah. Look at that. What is that? Would we call those Gothic archways with the pointed top there? Is this neo-Gothic architecture just without all the tracing and ornamentation on the stone? That's cool.
Satisfying thing I've ever seen in my life. That's awesome. Okay, Dan, I'm really fascinated right now because I've never seen a church like this before. I don't think I've ever seen a church with Hebrew in it.
90% of the text here that you will see around, it's in Hebrew.
I'm so fascinated.
Menorah right in the front. Look at that.
Yeah, the menorah right and then it says, "V'makom ragli echabed." All right, Dan, maybe you can.
I'm looking at this. I'm not seeing any crosses either, so that's interesting. The imagery there is Jewish, right? You have the menorah instead of having a big cross or a crucifix in the front. I love it, and there's Hebrew everywhere. There should be, I think it's cool that we translated the Bible into languages we can understand, and you should go read that. The fact that that's available to you is almost on the level of a miracle from heaven. However, it's also really good to learn the original language. And if you're an Israeli and you speak Hebrew, yeah, you can go for it. I mean, it's biblical Hebrew; it's a little different, but you need to go ahead, get into that Hebrew.
Give me a little bit of a tour. What makes this place a little bit different than a regular church, or is it just like a regular church?
Well, in essence, it is a church. It's a regular church in the sense of being a Protestant church. It is a very classical, very typical Protestant church, but the elements that do exist there are fairly unique to even a lot of Protestant churches.
Okay.
And it is those elements that makes it looking a little bit like a synagogue. 90% of the text is in Hebrew, menorah in the front, like we said, and Aron HaKodesh in the front. Over here, right on the front altar, we have a verse in Hebrew. Zot asu lezichronei, do this in remembrance of me. This is what Jesus is saying to his disciples as he's breaking the bread and blessing over the wine.
What is this? I'm an idiot and I see money. I don't like it.
Everybody says exactly the same thing, and fair enough, it does look like that.
What does that mean?
This symbol is actually standing for 3 languages. This one that you pointed out, it's in Latin. 3 letters, J, H, and S. Jesus homine Salvadore, Jesus the Savior of men. Latin being a very important language in church history since at least the 5th century, with the Vulgate, the translation of the Bible to Latin.
I think that's cool. I mean, I know some people might see this and say, well, you should just have a synagogue. Personally, as a Christian, I think it's neat to draw on, maybe Mark Kinzer would agree with me on this, to draw on like the long history of Christian tradition also, like just to if nothing else, to acknowledge that we wouldn't have discipleship to Jesus today if, like, were it not for centuries of like Latin speaking priests, right? And a Latin Bible. Like, that's part of the process of how we got here. You can't bury all of the history, right? So the fact that that's acknowledged, I think it's neat. I don't know. I don't know anything about their theology. I don't know how much of the theology. He says they're Protestant. So that's also I think neat. A lot of Protestants feel like their religion started in 1517, whereas, we are part of a long chain of tradition that goes back a long way before that. So the acknowledgement of that, I think, is healthy. I think it's healthy. That's just my opinion.
So it's become to be, a very important language within the church. Hebrew in the middle, obviously for the Tanakh, for the Bible, as we say, the Hebrew Bible, or some will call it the Old Testament, but that is the original language, is in Hebrew.
And Immanuel means in Hebrew to believe in God, right?
Immanuel is actually, says Immanuel, God with us. Immanuel.
Okay.
And it's taken from the book of Isaiah. So it became to be one of the names ascribed to the Messiah, to Jesus in the New Testament. And at the right side, you have Greek, Alpha and Omega. The beginning, it's like the A and the Z in the Greek language. This term, Alpha and Omega, like Aleph and Taf in Hebrew, it's taken from the book of Revelation. As Jesus says on himself, as he reveals himself to John, over there he says, I am the Alpha and the Omega. So I am the end, the beginning and the end. So
Jesus says that about himself.
Yeah, in the book of Revelation, as he revealed to himself to him. He uses also other descriptions, but that's one of them, and it became to be a term.
And how about these books? What is it?
So there's the books here. One is the Bible, and another one here, it's what is called Seder Tefillah, or Sidur, common prayer book.
I have never seen this before. This is actually really fascinating to me.
It is essentially an Anglican prayer book that was translated to Hebrew. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And it's
like here, for example, Avinu shebashamayim itkadesh shimcha, which means our Lord in the sky, in heaven.
Our Father which is in heaven, hallowed be your name, thy kingdom come. It's a very known prayer.
In Christianity or even in Judaism?
It's actually, yes, this is actually quotation from the New Testament. Jesus teaches his disciples how to pray.
That's neat that there's Siddur as an Anglican prayer book that was translated into Hebrew. What it reminds me of is Paul Philip Levertov. Right? Paul Philip Levertov was an Anglican priest, but also like he believed in Judaism. Like he helped translate the Soncino Zohar into English. He was from related to like a Hasidic dynasty. So he's a guy who, but he was a follower of Jesus. But instead of having like a purely synagogal form of worship, he became an Anglican priest. he wrote a really interesting book called Religious Ideas of the Hasidim. We have an excerpt of that translated into English called Love in the Messianic Age. I think everyone should read it. I think everyone in the world should read that book. Maybe we'll throw a link to that book down in the old description there. But Levertov was cool. I wonder if this is like somehow related to the work that he was doing. If it's Anglican, like I wonder, because the heritage of Messianic Judaism, as we know it today, part of that heritage is really those missionary efforts, and we don't. I'm definitely in the Mark Kinzer camp of like post-missionary Messianic Judaism. However, we owe, again, it's talking about owing something to previous generations. A lot of the groundwork for the idea of being able to be a Jewish person and also a follower of Jesus, and a religiously Jewish person, was laid by like the London Society for the Promotion of Christianity Among the Jews, and that the name changed several times through history. But guys like that famous Old Testament commentary, the Kiel and Delitzsch commentary, Franz Delitzsch, right, which just translated the New Testament into Hebrew, a really neat translation, which you can get the Delitzsch Gospels. I think we still sell that. If we still sell that, we can throw a link to that in the description also. But like that fusion, when that fusion of Christianity and Judaism takes on an Anglican character, I always think back to that. I think back to Franz Delitzsch. I think back to Paul Philip Levertov. There's a whole community of people there trying to do something important, and again, that's part of the heritage of Messianic Judaism today. They're not using the term Messianic Judaism. I wonder if they will. Maybe that's a confusing term, or maybe that's just not. Maybe that term doesn't make sense to this community. Maybe they, but even considering that, this place reminds me of, in its accoutrement, it reminds me more of a synagogue than a church. Like you think of, I think it reminds me of Beth Emmanuel out there in Wisconsin, like a church building, but all the stuff inside is Jewish stuff. But that's just the impression that I get.
And he just gives them prayer like this.
It's so cool to see this, like Adonai Rachem Aleinu. Like these are stuff that I would see in like a Jewish siddur. What does it mean to be a Jewish Christian?
Okay, that's first of all a good question. I would ask even the question to begin with, even though in the beginning I kind of like, you asked me, are you a Christian, are you a Jew, are you in Israel? I said yes, in general yes, but it requires some explanation, because those terms are not really necessarily the terms that we'll be using overall, but that's the common terms. So we say, sometimes I would say yes to them just for people, to make it simple. Okay. But we are not here for the simple.
We're not here for the simple. Yeah, we want to know
the point of it. Exactly. Yeah. So we are diving into it now. But just to mention another part in the back that it is actually pretty interesting. We have a Aron Kodesh, the holy ark in the front of the church. Okay, that's not.
You have a Torah in there?
No.
They don't have a Torah scroll? Well, explain that.
But there is the Aron. There is the ark that you would see in every synagogue.
Wow.
So it's not Aron Kodesh in practice, but it is in look. And that's also something, another element like within a church.
Yeah.
Right?
I've said some nice things about these guys, so I might offer a gentle criticism. First of all, you could just get a Torah scroll. Like anyone can go buy a Torah scroll. Someone might even be happy to donate that. I mean, I don't know. But why not? Like, why not have a Torah scroll? Like, I'm thinking about this. I'm not Jewish, but I've read a lot of books written by people who are Jewish. And I'm just thinking about the idea. Like, think of someone wearing tefillin, like laying tefillin. They have the box, right, on the head, on the arm. But there's nothing in there, right? Like there's no scrolls in there. There's no Bible passages in there. Like those tefillin are not kosher, right? It doesn't matter what it looks like. And similarly with like a mezuzah, right? A traditional Jew would have a mezuzah on the doorposts of their house, not just the external doorposts, but all the livable rooms in the house will have a mezuzah in there. And inside the mezuzah, inside this little container, is a rolled up scroll containing important passages from the Torah. there's no scroll in there, it's not a mezuzah. Like the scroll is the functional part of the mezuzah. The Bible passages in the tefillin are like the functional part of the tefillin. It's important how they're built and all of that, but like with nothing in there, like what are you doing? That's interesting. You know, it's like you think all these Bible passages are coming to mind, like when God tells Samuel, like a man looks on the outside, but I look on the heart. Or when Jesus says, you know, don't just clean the outside of the cup, but the inside. It's like this recurring theme throughout the Bible. I'm not trying to like come down hard on these guys, but just like considering the optics of having an empty ark, or an empty Aron Kodesh in the front of your shul. Are you sending? What message are you sending? Maybe he'll explain it. Maybe I shouldn't have paused the video here to say any of this, but what message are you sending by having an empty ark in that part of your building? What is that? Is it called the nave? Is it the chancel? What do you call it in a building like this? Interesting. Fascinating choice.
It's very unique. So it is a church that looks like a synagogue.
Mm-hmm.
And
not the biggest. I think it's better than it's better than a lot of other alternatives. But why not? I mean, what would it take to change that into something more functional? Like what would be the problem with having a Torah service? Like, does this reflect a deep theological difference between what is happening here in Christ Church Jerusalem versus what we would advocate or we would push for as what we would call Messianic Judaism here at First Fruits of Zion? Maybe, right? Maybe. And when you only change the external trappings of something, but there's not a deeper reflection as to why would we change how it looks, right? When you look at, and we talked about architecture for a couple of seconds earlier. When you think about architectural movements, when you go and you start to look at it, where did brutalism come from, right? Where does neoclassical architecture come from? These are not merely aesthetic movements. These are movements that reflect changes in culture. They reflect changes in values. They advocate values. Some of them loudly advocate values. In the case of a neo-Gothic building, maybe it's a connection, or other neo-hyphen architectural movements. It's a connection with older values, a connection with the history or the past. So if you have an ark in your church, it's saying outwardly, we have a connection with Judaism. But without a Torah scroll, is there? Right? Like, is there a vital connection with Judaism? And I don't know enough about what's happening at Christ Church Jerusalem to be able to answer that question. But I think it's an important question. I'm not, everyone can go out there and do what they want. But these are just the questions that I have. I'm glad that they're following Jesus. That's great. Jews following Jesus. Go, please do it. Again, this is just the thought that came to my mind. And I don't want to be too hard on these people.
Question, I think, we can't understand Christianity without understanding Judaism.
Okay.
See, so he hit that one out of the park. That's completely true. So there's like a lot of good here. I don't want to minimize the good.
Jews in the Jewish lifestyle, why is it so? Because Christianity was birthed out of Judaism. And it's not just like I hope we can expand on it, because it's not just this statement that some people just said. It carries some weight with that. It carries some meaning with that should shape our understanding. And you cannot understand also, I think it goes in reverse. We cannot understand perhaps, I would say Jewish history without understanding what we will define today as Christian. We cannot understand for sure Messianic, as we call it, Jews, without understanding Christian. So that's why there is the link between these two things. And I hope we can talk about that. So a little bit more.
I think he's probably got a point there, that there's Jewish history without reference to Christianity would have some big lacunae, right? You're missing something there, because the way that Judaism navigated all history, the way the Jewish community navigated through history is, at least in Europe, and also in the Middle East, when you look at the Crusades, like the church had a lot to do with that, and often was like the primary antagonist of Jewish history. So sure, to understand Jewish history, you're going to learn something about Christians as well. There's more. There's some deep prophetic things happening, and obviously believing that Jesus is the King of the Jews, the Messiah of the Jews, that may inform a take on Jewish history. But maybe we won't get into that now. This video is already getting kind of long.
For me, and I think for me personally, first of all, there is, in some ways I can say certain things that will be, hey, this is more or less what Messianic Jews in general are, Jews who believe in Jesus.
Is that the right label to give you as a Messianic Jew?
You would say that, yes, this is the term that got stuck. Not everybody likes this term necessarily, even among Messianics. Or feel like it's representing them, but that's how we know, so that's what we will use. First of all, what is a Messianic Jew? In the Torah, it's a Jew who believes in Jesus as a Messiah. What is Messiah? In English, it might be defined as anointed one, right? In Hebrew, Mashiach, from Meshicha. It's the anointed one. Anointed, usually kings and prophets in the Bible that are chosen by God for specific purposes to represent Him, to carry out His will among the people, make Him known among the people. That's the thing, and it's a Jewish faith, obviously. It's a Jewish concept and idea. We have different opinions about what is a Messiah, even today. Within the greater Jewish world, there is different streams in Judaism today who believe that a certain rabbi or this rabbi was or is even a Messiah.
Like, for example, the same way that Christians hold Jesus Christ as the Messiah, the Lubavitcher Chabad community holds the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who passed away exactly 30 years ago, as potentially a candidate to be the Messiah. And a lot of times when these Jews pray, they actually say things like Yechia Mashiach in reference to this rabbi claiming that he's going to come back for the Geulah, for the redemption. So there's a lot of crossover in those two groups. Actually, those concepts stay alive both in Christianity and Judaism. And it's something that for me as a Jew, like I struggle with that concept frequently, because I'm like, how do you know to decipher what is the truth, what isn't, what is personal decision? So it's very interesting to hear from somebody like you who actually believes that Jesus Christ was the Mashiach.
I think just from the perspective of like the basics, sometimes it's a good idea to recapitulate the basics. The only way that you open the gospel, it says there's a gospel of Jesus Christ or something like that, right? Like what is sure, why not? Let's start at the very beginning of the New Testament. Make sure we get the version right here. English Standard Version. The book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. This is a nonsense sentence if you don't know anything about Judaism. And you read through the New Testament, you might figure out a lot about it, because the New Testament is Jewish literature. You're going to get some Judaism along with it. It's all Judaism. It's all Second Temple Judaism. But so you'll learn some things that will help you decipher that sentence. But what is Jesus Christ? Jesus, the Messiah. Christ is Christos. It's the Greek term for the Hebrew term Mashiach, which is saying means anointed. Anointed is what? Like, what does it mean to be anointed? Well, he's the Jewish king, right? He's the king of. He's claiming that he's the king of the nation of Israel, and then you have a Christianity today that, by and large, does not really believe in the concept of Israel, like as the Jewish people having a king living in the land of Israel, a real king, like physically sitting on a throne. That's a totally foreign idea to them. But that's what the sentence means, right? So I think what he's talking about here is like Judaism. Having to understand Judaism in order to really understand Christianity is a great point. And the fact that he knows this and that they're telling people about it, I think is wonderful. I think it's wonderful. People really underestimate how much Judaism you need to really make sense of the New Testament. The more, the better.
Yeah, and obviously I see him as a Jewish Messiah. I do not see myself as somebody who came out of Jewish faith. Pretty much every Messianic Jew in the country, I think, the overall, I think, thinking is that this is a Jewish faith. We are remaining within our identity, our general identity as part of the people. So this is not something that we take as, or we changed, or we kind of like moved into a different kind of like, or we left, our Jewishness in some sense.
Do you almost see it as
Seems like they did leave it in some sense, but I mean in the Haskalah sense, right? Like not having the Torah scroll as a clue that we're not dealing with traditional Judaism. So I find it fascinating that this category, this type of Messianic Jew is only possible in the last, 150, 200 years. The type of Jew who does not embrace a completely traditional Jewish observance, but retains the Jewish national identity, retains the sense that these people are Jewish, and then they're going to stop being Jewish, and they don't want to stop being Jewish, but they want to be followers of Jesus. But they're not doing all the mitzvahs according to like the traditional reading of the Torah, they're not doing traditional Judaism. I find it interesting that is the sort of thing that is only possible now. It wasn't possible for most of history.
It's like an evolution of Judaism?
So
like a natural one?
Yeah, the same evolution might sound
provocative question,
like a birth of something new out of something, right?
Right.
It's a bit. I would say it's even close. It's not just close to that. The process is a bit different. In essence, when we think about faith in Jesus, I think we have to understand the historical background of it. And like I mentioned in the beginning, Jesus is a Jew. His disciples are all Jews at the beginning. The New Testament was written mostly by Jews. If we go 2,000 years back, we will find ourselves, and we look at that, just about historically the reality of it within society, Jewish society at that period of time, we will find diverse Jewish groups in the land with different kind of ideas. But you would see among that a small group of followers of Jesus as Jews. Very much like you mentioned before, some follow different rabbis today, like some of the Breslevs, have also those big posters with "Long live the Messiah King." So if let's say in 500 years from now, if Breslev or Faith or Chabad will develop into something among, let's say they will develop into something very big in the Middle East. Will that be enough to make it not a part of us anymore? I don't think so. I don't think we think like that.
It's an interesting question. Would we see it as a completely different religion?
Yeah. So really the community of faith, the community of followers of Jesus in general in Israel, were always divided to two. It wasn't just one group.
Interesting.
One looked like Jews. He would come to them. They would look like Jews. Totally, they believe in Jesus. And another look different. And we call them Christians today.
I'm so happy you transitioned into this. So I got to ask you some questions that are on my mind, and I'm sure the Jewish people watching as well. So let's give this classification. Just a generalization that you're a Messianic Jew.
Yeah.
As a Messianic Jew, do you, and it could be personal to you or the community, you can give an answer for both. Do you keep Shabbat? Do you do Kiddush on Fridays?
I do, mostly not every Shabbat, I will do that. But as a community as a whole, I would say for me, yes. As a community as a whole, there is, I think the approach to Jewish traditions in general, and Jewish custom is kind of like, it's very versatile. There will be some
eclectic
Jews who believe in Jesus, Messianic Jews that are very connected to it and very practicing very strictly, and even take it to a place where they believe that that's what should be done. You have other Messianic Jews.
That's the category we're in. We believe that what should be done is that we don't throw rocks at people who don't do this, but theologically our position is that Jewish people should be traditionally observant. This is based on even just like the New Testament, where when Jesus says in Matthew 23, when Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, "The scribes and the Pharisees sit on Moses' seat, so do and observe whatever they tell you." Right? So this is an indication that this is traditional Judaism. That's how do you keep the Torah? Well, whatever the leadership says how you should do it. And so this is traditional Judaism, right? So, however, I think it's interesting to see the diversity. You have Messianic Jews that look sort of like Orthodox Jews. You have Messianic Jews that look sort of like modern Orthodox Jews. You have Messianic Jews that look like, conservative Jews. You have Messianic Jews that look like Reformed Jews. You have the same diversity in Messianic Judaism that you have in the broader Jewish movement. So when you think of like Jesus' core message, repent for the kingdom of heaven is at hand, I think everyone's going to have to come back around to keeping the mitzvahs, to keeping the Torah. And that will happen. But again, I believe in a providential God. So why does the world look the way it does today? Well, God has plans, right? Trust in those plans. Even as we call for everyone to repent, return to the Torah. You can do Kiddush every week. Just go ahead and do it. Try it. See what happens in your life.
Who have a more far approach to it, a more not as strong connection, and it's not just an issue of kind of like whatever. It's a theological arguments that exist within the Messianic body. What is the right relationship between Messianic Jews and the Torah, we'll call it like that, or Jewish traditions in general, for two reasons. One, theological reasons. It's the issue of how does one come near God? Is it, there is the elements of does doing certain things will bring me closer to Him? Is it faith in general that brings me closer? There's the idea. It's obviously we have a clear, theological stance in the Messianic body concerning that. But how do you practice it? There is arguments a little bit about it, of where the line crosses. And also there is that element of, don't forget that even Jewish tradition, and by the way, Christian traditions in some sense, those two groups were historically fighting with each other. And they're building many times the traditions and building the customs, many times in a way to kind of like differentiate themselves
in spite of each other.
Exactly.
True. Yeah. That's
and now
true.
for a group like us that is kind of like caught in between,
you're bridging the gap.
But also think about it, it's a problem. You can't identify completely with everything that one group is doing, because some of what they do is purposely opposing to what you believe. And
that's an interesting sociological point. I can't remember who who coined the term schismogenesis. The idea that out of a schism between two groups, like you have something you didn't have before, right? It's not someone didn't come up with something over here by themselves. What happened was there was one thing, and it's there was like a mitosis, and then like they ended up looking really different. Judaism and Christianity fighting over the same definition. The people to whom the benefits of the Abrahamic covenant accrue, I guess. We've said that a few times now. He's right that there were developments and trends in Judaism that happened because the Jewish community was like, well, the Christians took this, like they have that, so we're going to do it. We're going to do it a different way. There's stuff you find in Second Temple Judaism, and then you look and you find that it's sort of there in Christianity, and you don't really find it so much in Judaism, because the Jews were like, okay, well, you go ahead and do that. We're going to do something different to differentiate ourselves, like you said. Now, again, from a sociological perspective, it's true. It makes sense. And you might think, well, and this is the last thing I'm going to say. I'm wrapping this up because I'm running out of time. You might say, well, if the Jewish community came up with something, whether it's halacha or whether it's, some kind of custom, like which prayers are read in the Siddur, or the mode of prayer, whether you stand up or bow or sit, or things like this, like, or whatever it might be. I've heard that one is like the reading of the Ten Commandments out loud. It was a Second Temple Judaism thing. Christians kept doing it, and Judaism stopped doing it, right? If you look at differences like this, the tendency is going to be, for a lot of people, and it sounds like this is what he's saying, is that you can't go out and do 100% of Judaism if you're a believer in Jesus, because there's going to be things in there. There's going to be stuff in there that is anti-Jesus. Like it's against it, right? It's against what you believe, and you're going to be somehow betraying that belief. You're going to be betraying your allegiance to Jesus by being 100% observant as like a traditional Jew. What we have found at First Fruits of Zion is that's not the case. There is nothing required of a Jewish person under Jewish law, traditional Jewish law, to my knowledge or understanding, that would cause them to have to like vacate their belief in Yeshua or Jesus as the Messiah, because he didn't tell, first of all, he told people that they should keep being Jewish, and even to follow what the scribes and the Pharisees said. Oh, and he goes on in that chapter to say some things about the Pharisees and scribes, but even he prefaced all of that by saying, well, you have to do what they say. But in my view, providentially, again, I believe in the providence of God. Providentially, you don't find anywhere. There's nothing in the Siddur. You have Siddurs, all kinds of Siddurs back there, and none of them say, I don't believe that Jesus of Nazareth is Messiah. None of them say that. There's you can go ahead and you can pray that. I've looked through the whole thing, and it's fine. You can pray all those prayers and you can be a disciple of Jesus. And there's Jewish people who have done this. You can look through history and see, Isaac Lichtenstein, Ignaz Lichtenstein, Daniel Zion. There's quite a few others. But I'm really bad with lists of things. But I'm trying to think of one more. Avram Polyak, right? So there's a lot of these guys that found no conflict between a completely traditional Jewish observance and following Jesus. So that's our position at First Fruits of Zion. There's no conflict. And in fact, that's an ideal situation for someone to do both. All right, as usual, check the description for helpful links and more information. And while you're there at the website, go ahead and create an account and we will give you something for free. All that being said, until next time, thanks for watching.